Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the BONMA podcast, talking about UFC Tampa, this Colby Covington versus Joaquin Buckley card, which I have foolishly not pulled up the actual card for me to reference while I'm doing this. My apologies. This card is really interesting from a betting standpoint, which is probably a bad time to bring that up before saying the usual do not bet on UFC or other MMA cards unless you have money to lose, because this is an inherently unpredictable sport. It's not a safe betting thing. It's not a path to financial freedom. Keep that in mind. It is an extra little spice of life. Do not be throwing down like 50 G's unless you have 50 G's to waste. If you're rake, you can throw down 50 G's. If you're a normal person, do not do that. Do not touch that. Anyways, the betting odds for this one are like quite playable. I think that there are very few fights that are like not playable, honestly, on a betting lines level. The only fights that I wasn't even remotely tempted to do anything with are, I guess, Navajo Sterling versus Tukatokos, just because it's like too wide to really do anything with. Like it's a bit of a squash match, and Miranda Maverick lower down the card, kind of a similar thing. And I think maybe Joel Alvarez versus Drakkar Klose is one that I probably I wouldn't touch with my read on the fight. But if you have a different read than I do, you could definitely think about doing that. You could go there. But everything else, I think I'm pondering, I'm debating, I'm coming up with ideas for what I should do betting wise with them. Now, is the card super interesting on its face? Not really. There's a lot of fights on here that are like kind of the main X factor is like a fighter or both fighters are getting kind of old and have kind of hit they've hit a rough patch in their career, and it's about coming up the other side, actually being like still a fully functional and capable fighter. And those type of things are never really all that exciting to break down, because you're kind of just trying to figure out who still has it. You're trying to figure out what's going to fall off of their game, and it's not fun to really break that down. So there is that problem. That being said, there are some good fights on this card. There is, for example, Daniel Marcos versus Adrian Yanez. I'm looking forward to that. The debut in the UFC of Navajo Sterling is, as much as it's a squash match, is a fun fight to consider. Joel Alvarez versus Drakkar Klose. That's a fun fight. That's got good potential. Sean Woodson, Fernando Padilla. There's a bad version of that fight, but there's also a very good version of that fight, and we could hope for the latter. Same with Miles Johns versus Felipe Lima. And also, I'm looking forward to Davey Grant versus Ramon Tavares and Pierre Rodriguez versus Josephine Knudsen, because that's a very revealing fight, I think, for Knudsen particularly. So those are all good, but there are fights here, and unfortunately, the top four fights fit this mold that I'm not like super interested in. Don't get me wrong, they're very solid fighters, they're good fighters, they're relevant fighters, and they are relevant fights. It's just the combination of variables going into it have me a little bit subdued. But hey, you know what? Sometimes the fights that I'm not expecting things from, they blow me out of the water, because, you know, you have that low expectation going in. It's really easy to clear that. So it could be a very fun night. Now, that being said, I do not accept the people that like use that as an excuse for the UFC to have weak cards, because let's be honest here, you should still be putting together cards that I am expecting things for. You should not be relying on matchups to overdeliver. So let's talk about the main event. Colby Covington, Joaquin Buckley, welterweight bout. It's a title fight contender, or a title contender's bout. Buckley because it should be. He's had a good run, and I just realized that my fan and my computer has stopped going. One of them. I'll have to keep an eye on that. Hopefully it's not dead. But Buckley's had a really good run. Obviously, he's gone 5-0 since dropping down to welterweight. Now, I will say some of the excitement for him dropping down to welterweight and doing really well should be dampened by the fact that he is fighting fighters who are old, not very good, or otherwise problematic, like Andre Fiallo, who was, well, unceremoniously on his way out of the UFC when he lost to Joaquin Buckley. I forget. No, Buckley didn't even start it. He'd been knocked out prior to that by Jake Matthews and Muslim Salikov. So yeah, there's that, and then the knockout to Tim Means, and he's even lost on UAE Warriors. So obviously problems. And then, you know, Vicente Luque, he's got all of his problems. He came out with a big win over Themba Garimbo. So, but let's remember there are some significant issues with him. There's Alex Morono, who's just very unathletic. Nursultan Ruziboev, who is his own mess of a fighter, and then you have Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, who's in his 40s. So, like, obviously there is a theme in all of those of fighters that are not necessarily title contenders, not necessarily ranked fighters anymore in the case of Wonderboy and Vicente Luque. But hey, he's getting the W's, and he's clearly a very physical presence at 170. And then in the other corner, you have Colby Covington, who is always kind of in the title picture because he's Colby Covington. He's the big MAGA boy. He's got that built-in fan base, even though I think that fan base actually really soured on him in the Leon Edwards fight. I've noticed that there's been lesser and lesser people actually like trying to defend him on social media and stuff. So there is that to consider. But like, I think a win here in Florida, in Trump country, the gimmick may play really, really well. So as for the fight itself, the problem with Covington is nothing to do with the politics, nothing to do with anything really. It's just that he is kind of broken. His last 3 fights, I want to say, has not been the Colby Covington of old. He is a Colby Covington who has been confronted with his own mortality. And outside of the Tyron Woodley fight, who was just like absolutely done, the aggression, the volume, the violence is not there. Hang on, let me pull up some UFC stats here. I think they may or may not make my point for me a little bit here. So if you look at Colby Covington's old school fights, like you go back to the Robbie Lawler fight, you go back to the RDA fight, you go back to the Debbie Amaya fight, there you will see like just massive numbers of strikes landed, basically. Massive numbers. Like a tremendous activity rate, what he's throwing, what he's landing. If you go watch the fights, you see that. You see this hyper-aggressive guy. And then you get to the post-Usman period, the post-knockout loss to Usman. You get a pretty active fight against Tyron Woodley because it's Tyron Woodley. He has that happen to him. And then you have the fight with Kamaru Usman, where he fights at a much lower pace than he did the first time. Still high pace. Lands 107 strikes. Like it's still pretty impressive. But like he goes from working at a basically a higher pace at Usman in the first fight to the second fight where he's working at a slower pace, where he's throwing less, landing less than Usman. And he's always, of course, been a heavy miss guy. So the fact that he's throwing less is a problem. And then you get to the Masvidal fight where it's just 2 old men out there doing their thing. Like, yeah, he puts up decent numbers. He gets takedowns, etc. But it's like, it's just bad. And then the Leon Edwards fight is god awful. Do not go back and rewatch that fight. For the love of God, it's an indictment on both men. Covington has had some excuses for that, obviously. He's talked about issues he had medical-wise going into the Leon Edwards fight. The fact that he also, I believe this has been confirmed that he did break his foot during the early going of the Leon Edwards fight. But I feel like this is a guy who would have fought through that broken foot before. He would have shown signs of life. He would not have allowed himself to be knocked onto the back foot ever back in his prime. And I really do believe it's like this guy got knocked out and he's going through that phase where he knows, I think deep down inside, what makes him a good fighter. It is the activity, the aggression, the fearlessness, almost like the willingness to exchange, even when he knows that strike for strike, he cannot match the opponent. And that's gone. And he's also 36 years old. The cardio is probably not quite the same as what it was. The wrestling's not as impactful. Again, old man George Masvidal was able to stagger out some takedown defense for him, and then like the Edwards fight it's just terrible. So I am picking Buckley because Buckley is a guy who is in the prime of his career, more or less. I'd say maybe 30 years old. Like he's probably basically at his peak as in terms of a fighter. He's got the power. He's got the explosiveness. He's got the strength. He's got the anti-wrestling. He is actually hard to out-wrestle. He is actually hard to light up. And he is Don't get me wrong, it's kind of memeish. There are textbook failings, but like he comes in with a good game plan, goes out there, and he tends to deliver. He tends to deliver violence, creativity, explosiveness, speed, and I do not trust in Colby Covington's durability. I do not trust in Colby Covington's fighter mindset still being there. I do not trust. I don't trust a lot of things about him. That's what it comes down to. So Buckley by TKO is my pick. Buckley is minus 265 to minus 310. That is bettable in my opinion. Like I kind of expected this to be wider. Covington on short notice is plus 205 to plus 230. Wouldn't touch Covington. Would possibly think about including Buckley in a parlay or something along those lines. Probably not a straight money bet. I'd have to look at the props, but there you go. Cub Swanson versus Billy Quarantillo. This is kind of a similar fight in a lot of ways in that Billy Quarantillo is kind of a lot like Colby Covington. Now, what I mean by that is that his game was made by scrappiness, durability, cardio, and the ability to take a fight deeper and deeper and just kind of break people down. That's what he did. Now, he did it in a somewhat different way. He's not as good of a wrestler as Covington. He's not as fast relative to the competition. And particularly, he tended to get his ass kicked a lot more than Covington did early in fights. And as a result, I think the fact that while he is 36 years old, like Covington, and he is fading, and the things that made him really, really good, the durability, the cardio, those things are like kind of fading. Those are really the only two things. I was trying to come to the third one night, and I didn't. I had nothing. And that's why he's still like very, very functional still as a fighter. That being said, is that whole thing that I just said, the grappling, heavy, grinding, not good at striking, kind of low athlete game, is that what beats Cub Swanson? Probably not. Like, it's always a gamble picking Cub Swanson. He's 41 years old. It is not a safe bet. It is not a safe bet at all. His athleticism is fading. His speed is not quite there. The dynamicism is not quite there anymore. Like, all of these things are, everything I said about Covington and Quarantillo are largely applicable to Cub Swanson. He is a fighter in decline. That being said, he is still, I also bopped the mic there a little bit. Hopefully that doesn't get picked up. He is still a capable, well-structured boxer. Like, for all of his dynamicism and his athleticism and his big moments, he actually did build a game that was going to age reasonably well. Like, he's a guy who was washed, I don't know, 7 years ago? But, like, fighters who were, like, prospects that are, like, now catching up to him and watch this. Like, that's what it comes down to. So, there you go. Generally speaking, out wrestling Cub is a hard proposition. It's been done, but you're talking like Frankie Edgar, Chad Mendez, and Andre Fili had some success, but like not a lot. That was a very questionable decision. Those are all better wrestlers and better athletes than Quarantillo. And the guys who have submitted him are like very, very dangerous submission guys. Ricardo Lamas, Brian Ortega, Hanato Moicano come to mind. I mean, obviously there's that long ago guillotine loss to Jens Pulver. But as a general rule, the guys who finish him quickly and with venom on the ground are guys who are very, very, very good at that. Very lethal, very dynamic, and that's not Quarantillo. Cub also manages his gas tank pretty well. I have no doubt that it is lower in gas tank quality than Billy Quarantillo's, but like he doesn't just gas out of a fight. He doesn't just get exhausted and fall apart. So I'm going with Cub Swanson by decision. A stoppage wouldn't surprise me. We have seen Quarantillo get finished a little bit lately. I want to say 2 of his last 3 fights have been finishes. Yeah, he got finished by Edson Barbosa, and he got submitted by Yusuf Zalal, but he did get hurt on the feet as well by Zalal in a way that does suggest some problems. So, yeah, I'm going to go Cub. Stoppage is there. It's an option. There is also the possibility that at 41 years old, Cub just looks completely washed and Quarantillo takes it to him. I guess that's all on the table. Quarantillo is the favorite at minus 146 to minus 166. I will be betting on the underdog, the plus 124 to plus 132 dog, Cub Swanson. Depends on which line I can get. Mano Kopp versus Bruno Silva. This is, I do not like this fight. I do not. I kind of think that this is honestly just kind of like malpractice as a matchmaker. Manal Cop has had some really, really, really boring fights against counter strikers because he is fundamentally a counter striker. He likes to pressure, but he likes to pressure in a way that opens up counter strikes. It's not an active. It's not a volume. It's not a I'm going to hit you pressure. It's a I'm going to make you feel uncomfortable so that you kind of throw at me in uncomfortable ways, and then you get clocked on the counter by me. That's what he wants to do. So why the UFC now multiple times has elected to have him fight another counter striker, I don't understand. I do not get it. Like it's not like this hasn't been tried and like largely failed. Manal Cop versus, let's see here. Oh, well, the one that really was terrible was Matthias Nicolau, and even like the Alexander Pantoja fight with the debut. Like, at least that made sense, like matchmaking wise, but like these were bad ideas. The guys who have historically given us good fights with him, Ode Osborne, Shogun Shumagulov, Felipe Dos Santos, these are guys that come after him and like do some things. And Bruno Silva doesn't really do that. He's a powerful counter striker. I like Bruno Silva. He puts up good fights generally, but like he's at his best when somebody brings the fight to him. Manal Cop is at his best when someone brings the fight to him, and you've taken away that aspect. You put two guys in there who want to counter, and that's a terrible matchmaking. I think, honestly, real talk. Anyways, I'm going with Cop. Why am I going with Cop? Well, he's the better athlete. He's the faster guy. His single strikes are cleaner. Silva can be a little bit more chaotic and a little bit more effective in the creativity, catch people in like exchanges category. But like, again, I don't think we're going to get a lot of those. That's the problem. So I really want Silva to win. I like him. I really, really dislike Manal Cop for two reasons. One, on a personal level, I just think he's a shitty human being. But on another level, I really dislike the fact that he is a guy that if he had a fighting spirit, an aggressive mindset, would be absolutely unstoppable. He has all of those abilities that you would look for. He is durable. He is fast. He is explosive. He is reasonably long for the division. He is technically capable. Like, he clearly picks up techniques really easy. Snap of the fingers really easily. And instead of becoming a all-time great, a destroyer of worlds, a UFC champion, that's what those ingredients should be. He's the guy who had a terrible fight with Muhammad Mokaev. Instead, that's what we have. That's what we get instead, because his brain is just wrong for fighting. That's the unfortunate nature of this fight. So there you go. That's why I'm having problems like getting excited for the fight. There you go. But Cop by decision. He's minus 350 to minus 390. Silva's plus 260 to plus 295. Then we have Dustin Jacoby versus Vitor Petrino. This is a shaky pick because Jacoby, like my pick with Cub Swanson earlier, is a guy who is aging out. He's 36 years old. That is old by MMA standards. And he's 1-4 in his last 5. That's concerning. I'm not going to lie. But I firmly believe that he should win this fight. He is still fundamentally Justin Jacoby, which is a good range, technical, volume-esque, got some nice counters, got some nuance, got some craft, got some technical glory, Dustin Jacoby. And he's a guy who built a game that didn't rely on overwhelming physicality. Yes, he has lost lately. He has lost to some very, very good fighters. He has lost, or at least, let me rephrase that. Very, very good athletes. He has lost to Dominic Reyes. He has lost to Alonzo Menifield, Azamat Murzakanov, Khalil Roundtree Jr. That fight with Roundtree was close. That fight with Menifield was close. The Murzakanov fight, not so much. And of course, the Reyes fight was a first round, 2-minute, knockout. So that's not amazing. But like, these are phenomenal, like top of the food chain athletes, very dangerous guys. And Vitor Petrino is in that mold. I'm not going to lie. Vitor Petrino has the physicality to be those guys. The problem is I think he's in a confidence fall right now. It was probably the Marcin Prachnio fight, I want to say, when Prachnio started to just kind of push back and have solutions for him, that like, I think the crack started showing. And then after that, you're going to decision with Tyson Pedro. What are you doing? Why are you going to decision with Tyson Pedro? That's a terrible idea. And then also the loss to Anthony Smith. He lost to Anthony Smith. We just saw Anthony Smith get the absolute tar beaten out of him. Also, this guy didn't finish the Pleasure Man and Drakkar. That's an all-time hilarious fight if you want to go back and read that or watch that. Petrino's 27 years old. He can still figure things out. He's got a good frame for the division, 6'2", 77.5-inch reach at 205. Very effective, very athletic. He hits hard. He just needs to figure out how to deliver that power. He grapples well, at least on a power basis thing, and he clinches well for a 205er. Again, 205 is the land of people who really cannot grapple very well. Like there are guys at the very top of this division, including the champion, who are not very good at grappling. So the ingredients are there, but he's got to figure it out. It's kind of like the Manel Kops situation to a certain degree, except that Kops is like a more long-standing thing. Petrino might actually shake it off and like figure it out, but like he's gone low output. He gives people space now. He is not as aggressive. He's got that fear in him that wasn't there before. He's got that. He's lost that feeling of invincibility aura. And if you're going to give time and space and range to Dustin Jacoby, and you're not going to like have one punch, I'm going to terminate you power, which Petrino does not effectively have. Like I think he physically has it, but like the technique is just not there. Like the ability to deliver it is not there. Because I mean, outside of Modestas Bukauskas, there's no one that this guy has terminated that is worth anything. So, and that includes Tyson Pedro and Anton Turkalj, who are like very terminatable. I've got to go with Jacoby by decision. I'm nervous about it. I understand why he's the plus 240 to plus 270 underdog. I get that. I understand that. Petrino's minus 300 to minus 340, but I'm going to go with Jacoby by decision. Let it happen. Hopefully, cross your fingers, cross your toes, cross everything. Let's make it happen. Then we get to a fight that I'm actually really, really excited for. So finally, we are there. Daniel Marcos, Adrian Yanez, battle of two guys at 135 who have my attention and they have my curiosity because these guys are both like one X factor, one I don't want to say small thing because particularly in the case of Yanez, it's not a small thing, but one specific ingredient away from being a guy who could probably freaking contend for a title. Like that's how good they are. And in Marcos's case, it's a lack of offensive focus. This guy is very, very effective, impactful, and adaptable to opponents on the feet. He will work the low kicks really, really well. He'll fight at a good pace. He'll find counters. He'll find pressure. He can wrestle and scramble as well. So there's like not a big gap in his grappling game, although it is definitely a B game. Like his best bet is the kickboxing. But his offense will just kind of wane. Like if he gets too many things coming back on him in defense, the Davey Grant fight is a great example of this. Like he becomes too safety oriented. Don't get me wrong, this is a good thing. Normally I'm yelling about the opposite. The complete lack of mindfulness and defense of MMA fighters is something that if you've been listening to me for any length of time, you know drives me up the freaking wall. But like Marcos is like too far in that other direction. He just needs to find that right balance. He needs to find mindful defense and then mix it with actual offense the entire time, as opposed to like shutting down at times. Hopefully I got that through. Yanez has kind of the opposite problem. It's not like a direct opposite. It's not it is on the other end of the spectrum. It's the fact that his own defense is quite bad. Like he can push a pace. He can hit hard. He's got the athleticism. He's actually probably got better athleticism than Marcos. He's got that more of X factor where I think he's like a really, really hard hitter. And I don't think Marcos is. But it's very, very, very ignoring of how to defend kicks. It's very open also to getting hit. He will dive into the pocket and just keep exchanging with you over and over. And that's how he gets caught. It's how Rob Font caught him, for example. It's how big punchers have had success against him. He has a loss to Miles Johns, who we're going to talk about later, who is a very simple fight IQ question for a guy with the physical gifts of Adrian Yanez. And he couldn't do it. And that's the big question is like, can you figure out the defense? Can you just do that for me? Or are you just going to get chopped up with low kicks repetitively here and just kind of outlanded and outvolumed and just not have the defensive options? Like you'll probably have the big moments. Yanez is, like I said, a massive puncher, but The other thing is that I don't know if he'll overload Marcos's defensive brain, because the things when Marcos's defense goes to, or offense goes to, I don't want to say off switch, but like limited switch, is when people give him multiple different looks and make him like think about a lot of things. He's using a lot of bandwidth upstairs in his brain. And I don't know if Yanez really will do that. Yanez is the type of guy who's going to try the same kind of entry, the same basic approach to getting you to fight him in the pocket 4 or 5 times. And then he'll be like, all right, now for my secret weapon. You have seen this approach 5 times. You're ready for it. But are you ready for it the 6th time? and I'm hoping Marcos is ready for that and he keeps up the pace and counters it, basically. I got Marcos by decision. He is the favorite at minus 200 to minus 230. Yanez is plus 162 to plus 180. Yanez is a very, very bettable. Very bettable on that line. I probably will stay away from it myself because I do think Marcos is going to win. And it's a little bit too long in the odds for how confident I'm feeling about it. Navajo Sterling versus Tukatokus. I'm going to be short and sweet about this one. Navajo Sterling is a massive 205 prospect. I mean that in both a physical sense and the bigness of the prospect. He's training out of the City Kickboxing Gym, which is the gym that is associated with Alexander Volkanovski. He trains elsewhere as well, but he does have ties to that gym, as well as Israel Adesanya, Dan Hooker, Carlos Olberg. There's a lot. There's a lot of the down under contingent that trains or is related to City Kickboxing. So he's got a good gym behind him. He's got massive physicality. He's huge, 6'4". I saw an 82-inch reach listed somewhere, but they had him at 79 inches on Dana White Contender Series. I'll trust the Dana White Contender Series until I'm proven otherwise. And he appears to be actually pretty skilled. Now, he is very raw. He's a 5-0 fighter, very new to MMA. Even in his Dana White Contender Series fight, there were moments where he was given pause. The opponent just kind of was like doing things and trying to answer him and trying to come up with ways to fix it. It was like, oh, this is what it's like to be in a fight. He hasn't folded. I'm a little worried about this, but we have seen other guys get through that pretty quickly. Tukatokus is very aggressive. He is got a pretty decent jiu-jitsu game and everything, but like he is a can crusher. Take away his win over Ty Flores, who's a pretty reasonable fighter. Everything else is just terrible. And like when he got to the road to the UFC, got knocked out by Bing Yang Zhang, got destroyed by Omar Sy in his UFC debut. He is here to lose to Sterling by TKO, most likely. He is not a great athlete. He is not a good striker. He is not a good wrestler. So I said he had a decent BJJ game, decent grappling game. Doesn't really have a way to get you there. So Sterling, TKO, minus 750 to minus 800. Tokus plus 470 to plus 550. I would stay away from it. Like I don't like betting on guys who are like minus 700, even if I think that they should be minus 700, and I do. It's just that the betting on it is not fun, and Tokos is not a big enough underdog for me to consider that. Michael Johnson, Otman Azaitar. I'm gonna be super brief about this one too. The Azaitar brothers are not good. They are bad. They hit hard. They have reasonable physicality and everything, but like they're guys in their mid-30s who have gotten to the UFC and have been can crushing and beating up people who cannot fight them. And who instantly like implode. Can they win fights in the UFC? Yeah, absolutely. There are people that are going to come in and be like that bad. It's already been done. Ottman's beaten Timo Packalin and somebody else whose name is eluding me right this second. So obviously, like, it can happen. Yeah, there we go. He beat Kama Worthy as well, but like knocked out by Matt Frivola in the first round, knocked out by Francisco Prado in the first round. He is fighting Michael Johnson. Michael Johnson has a unique ability to lose fights. Don't get me wrong. He's got terrible submission defense. He is an auto tap if you have him a rear naked choke at any point. But that being said, he does not immediately fold. He actually usually wins fights early. Like the problem for Johnson is when you don't go away and he falls down and he loses confidence and he loses faith in himself. I'm suggesting Zaitar is not going to last long enough for him to lose that confidence. So I have Johnson by TKO. He's minus 205 to minus 230. Zaitar plus 164 to plus 180. That's bettable. I will be betting on Johnson. Drakkar Klose versus Joel Alvarez. This is a pretty fun fight. It's interesting. The big question will be, of course, does Alvarez make weight? Because at 6'3", he's a massive lightweight, and I'm amazed he's only missed weight twice. Dude is a finisher. He's got that 8 points of contact Muay Thai thing where, like, he is deadly with the elbows, he's deadly with the hands, he's deadly with the feet, he's deadly with the knees. He's a good grappler as well. He attacks the neck very, very well in transition. And, he's just huge. He's got a 77-inch reach, and he's 6'3". I mean, that's massive. He's got 7 inches of reach and 4 inches of height. No. 6 inches of height. 6 inches of height. On Klose, who is normally used to being a guy who has at least an imposing reach. So, Klose is a good fighter, don't get me wrong, like a very solid clinch wrestler, but his range game leaves something to be desired. His ability to close distance leaves something to be desired. I'm never going to forget that David Tamor fight he had where Tamor was just like, with very basic like pivots and footwork, able to like frustrate him to no end to the point where he was like begging the referee to make Tamor fight him. Now, Alvarez is not going to do that, but like, that's kind of a problem when you're up against a guy who has 7 and 6 inches on you. So there you go. I've got Alvarez here by TKO. It should be a fun fight. Alvarez has no way of like making it a controlled like disintegration. He pretty much always has to have a reasonably messy fight. And Drakkar Klose is he is a tough guy, reasonable athlete and all. I expect a good fight here. I expect a good brawl. But I shouldn't say that I can't think of what a Klose win looks like. It's probably him just having really good control in the clinch and like outdoing Alvarez in the pocket. That's probably what it is. I guess I just don't really see it happening. Anyways, Alvarez minus 400 to minus 470. Klose is plus 300 to plus 360. Sean Woodson versus Fernando Padilla. I hate to break down a fight to just height, but Fernando Padilla is used to being a tall man. He's 6'1", 76 inches at featherweight. It is weird to be breaking down a featherweight fight where both fighters are taller than me. I'm just saying. It's annoying. They're taller than me when I'm in shoes. It's horrible. Anyways, Woodson is 6'2", 78-inch reaches. He's got a good range boxing game. He is super tall, super long. And if you're going to try and engage people from the outside, which Padilla usually does, it's going to be a losing formula against Woodson. Like it's not Woodson is taller. It's that Padilla is used to being the taller guy and has developed a game that involves height and reach and range a lot. And he doesn't have that no more. So Woodson by decision is my pick. He's minus 150 to minus 166. That is bettable. And Padilla is plus 125 to plus 130. Then we have Miles Johns versus Felipe Lima. This is a good test for Lima. Miles Johns is a guy who I've given up on getting any better, but like he is very good. He is a fantastic athlete. He's tough. He's got good cardio. Doesn't really force a pace on anybody, which is what I kind of wish he would do at some point. Not very creative, very repetitive as a striker, but again, fast, powerful, tough, durable. These are all things that come up here. He's also a good offensive wrestler and a good defensive wrestler. So he's very, very hard to take down. He's very hard to make a new grappling match. And again, earlier, he beat Adrian Yanez, which is, indicative of his durability. Yes, he got knocked out by Mario Bautista, but Mario Bautista threw the kitchen sink at this man. So there is that. He's very hard to grapple, like I said, and he is very, very hard to really hurt on the feet or get anything done against. Felipe Lima is the more interesting fighter in here. He's a 26-year-old, 5'6", 68-inch guy. These guys are both bantamweights, but they will be fighting at featherweight. Apparently for this one, it's a short notice booking. Save them 10 pounds of cutting weight. I wish the UFC would do that more. He is very exciting, high volume, aggressive grappler when he gets it there, but I don't think that'll be a factor here because I don't see him taking down Miles Johns. Is what it is. But he'll mix in jumping knees and dynamic stuff and heavy power stuff. And, he has a similar range here. We're talking 5'7", 66-inch reach for Johns. We're talking 5'6", 68 inches for Lima. We should see probably a lot of pocket combinations here. And like I said, Lima has that ability to force a high, not even that ability, but that desire and that need to force a higher pace, which is going to be really, really key. He's a little bit more creative, and that's kind of the thing, is that at the end of the day, Johns is a little too repetitive. I would assume Lima is going to break him down, and start to find the patterns, start to hit the counters, start to really kind of pull away as the fight goes on. So Lima by decision, he's minus 225 to minus 280 favorite. John's plus 175 to plus 210. I don't have much to say about Miranda Maverick versus Jamie Lynn Horth. Jamie Lynn Horth is a scrappy girl. She fights at a decently high pace. She likes to mix pocket striking with grappling, particularly in the clinch. And I just don't think she has the power, the strength, and so on to make that game really work at 125 in the UFC. Don't get me wrong. There are people she can beat, 100%, but she's up against a powerhouse here in Miranda Maverick, who is, she's got her own problems. She's kind of a female Miles Johns, honestly, a little bit, in the sense that, like, all the physical tools are there, and it's just a matter of getting the mentality behind it to not make it predictable and whatever, and, like, maybe pick up the pace a little bit. But she's got really clean looking striking when it's like single shot and not messy. She's really hard to take down, really hard to handle in the clinch, really powerful. It's like you could take one look at, just Google a picture of Miranda Maverick and you could tell that this girl is, like, you know, the powerhouse. Like, it is that obvious. So Maverick by decision, because I just don't see Horth being able to implement her game on her. And Maverick is not as green as, say, Ivana Petrovic, who Horth, air quotes, beat last time out. I thought Petrovic won that fight. Maverick by decision, she's a prohibitive favorite at minus 549 to minus 600, second biggest favorite on the card. Horth is plus 390 to plus 440. And then we have Davy Grant versus Ramon Tavares. I'm gambling here. I'm picking a 38-year-old Davy Grant. That does not make me feel good. It does not make me feel good. But Davy Grant is a guy who went to split decision. I talked about it earlier with Daniel Marcos and with Adrian Yanez. He is a tough guy. He is a crafty veteran striker. He is the definition of the veteran guy. Big frame, 5'8", 69 inches for 135 division. He is powerful. He's got good counters. He can wrestle pretty well. He can grapple pretty well. He does have some submission losses on his record, but we're talking to guys like Chris Holdsworth, who I think because of his really short career, we forgot how good he was. Manny Bermudez, who's a one-trick pony, and Damian Stosniak, who has a bizarrely interesting grappling game. But anyways, that's not what Tavares has. And then, like, on the feet, it's like, okay, you could get beat by Marcos, Adrian Yanez, and the cinder block head that is Marlon Vera. Anyways, Tavares is not nearly as durable as a Marlon Vera. He is not nearly as complete as a striker as a Marcos or as a Yanez. He is not the athlete either of them are. He is fine. I want to be clear on this. He is a serviceable athlete that has a place in the UFC's bantamweight division as an action fighter. He's going to be fun, and this fight is going to be fun. It's just, I don't see him having the creativity. I don't see him having the physicality. I don't see him having the X factors to actually beat Davy Grant. Like, it's just not the type of fight that Davy Grant tends to lose. That being said, Grant is 38 years old. You could fall off very rapidly at that point. And it's not like he has the best, let's just say, textbook defense that actually is going to allow him to do the Cub Swanson where he's at 41 years old and it's still like, ha, you're now like as washed as I am. But I'm going to go with him here. I'm open to being disappointed, but Tavares is, like I said, just not, he's not that guy. I don't think he's that guy. And he's 30 years old, so I'm not expecting a massive improvement for him at any point. So I got Grant by decision. Tavares and him are basically even money. We're talking Tavares at minus 110 to minus 115. We got minus 105 to minus 113 for Grant. Obviously, that's a bettable line. That's even money. Go for it. Go do it. If you have any kind of like strong feelings on this fight. And then the opener will be Pierre Rodriguez versus Josephine Knudsen. First note I have here is, why do I always find myself shocked that Knudsen's only 5'3"? Why do I always think she's taller? I don't have an answer. Answer's on a postcard. Anyways, Rodriguez is a disappointing fighter in the sense that she has all the speed, power, cardio to be like really, really good. She has actually a pretty reasonable range striking game. She has a pretty reasonable pocket wrestling or pocket striking game. She has the ability to clinch, the ability to grapple, the ability to wrestle. All of these are on the table. Like, there's everything there, every ingredient there, except that, kind of like Manel Cop, the brain. It's a different kind of flaw here, of course, because it's the issue with her is that she wrestles when she really shouldn't. Jillian Robertson, Sam Hughes, Kay Hansen, these are all fights that, in the case of Sam Hughes and Kay Hansen, would have been really, really, really way more in her favor if she just fought where they were weak. And with Robertson, she got submitted because she kind of engaged in clinching and like grappling with Robertson, and you don't do that. You don't do that. Don't do that. And she, of course, also recently got DQ'd in her against Adrian Carnelossi. So like there is also that kind of like problem where like you get DQ'd for headbutting. That's it's not great. Anyways, why am I confident in her winning this fight, despite the fact that Knutson's the favorite and Knutson's a really good fighter? It's that everything I just said there is why she is like potentially going to lose to grapple heavy fighters a lot, because she can't stop herself from engaging in like the grappling exchanges, even when she shouldn't. And the thing is, against Knutson, she should grapple. She should get close. She should try to wrestle her to the mat. These are all things that she is actually going to want to do in this fight. So all of those fight IQ issues, they're kind of not really on the table as a problem here. Knutson's a good fighter, and I wish her the best. And I am actually hoping she wins this fight, because I think that there's I'm a sucker for fighters who actually are trying to fix their games and like are trying to be smart about it. Like I will never stop being interested in like fighters like that, and that's Knutson. She's a good volume striker. She is a good outside striker, very good kickboxer and everything. But if Julia Pilastri can go 3 for 3 on takedowns and get 4 minutes of top control, and your best win over a grappler predominantly is Marnik Man, I have questions. I have big questions. Marnik Man is really bad, by the way, if you're unaware. Anyways, so that's my problem, is that yes, Rodriguez has bad decision making. Yes, Knutson is a good fighter who is making the appropriate adjustments and has a way better camp behind her. She's an all-stars training fighter. That's Alexander Gustafsson's gym. Whereas Rodriguez, as far as I know, is training with a team that I recognize 0 fighters on. So that's a problem. Hang on, let me see here. Let me see if Wikipedia has a better answer, because the sometimes Wikipedia is ahead of Tapology. Tapology does not track gyms very well. The other way to find this out is to look at her Instagram, but I don't think I have it. Oh, hang on. I have Instagram. Does she not have a Wikipedia page? Question mark? Does she not have a Wikipedia? This is weird, because she's been in the UFC for a hot second. Oh, there we go. I had to go to the Spanish Wikipedia. Okay, it says that she's training out of Extreme Couture. Okay, that does make me feel a little bit better. But like also, like I said, the problems in her game, the bad decision making, are all things that she should actually be doing against Knutson. Checking out the Instagram here. I don't know if I recognize any of these shots. But yeah, okay. So she's probably with Extreme Couture. Yeah, hopefully they can sort her out and get her ready. But like at the same time, this is the type of fight that she probably actually would have won even with her like middle of nowhere gym. So there you go. We head into but odds. Rodriguez is an underdog at plus 175 to plus 200. I'll be betting on that. And Knutson is minus 225 to minus 250. I get it. Rodriguez has lost 2 fights in a row, including by embarrassing disqualification. But at the same time, I do think that this is the type of fight that she does win. I do think that the things that she is bad at, the things that she does when she shouldn't do, are actually things she should do here, and that will equal a win. That's my thought. That's my ideas. Anyways, I will be back with you after the fights on probably Sunday. I will maybe late, because I do have an esports commentary gig before this fight card, which means I'll probably be late to the pile, but I will do my best. There you go. Check out the social media links down below. Check out the video gaming stuff down below. And also, if you care to, there is a Discord server there with the MMA simulator if you're like kind of a MMA fan / Dungeons and Dragons kind of guy, because it is role-playing as a fighter, basically. So I hope to see you over there. I hope to see you next time. And hopefully these fights are really, really good, because there are ingredients for a really good fight here.